On the other side, refugees are a huge and often overlooked source of potential. Investors are always looking for that that ability to find the company that no one else has found yet, to invest in sort of the next big thing. And we at RIN firmly believe that many refugee companies have a huge amount of untapped potential. And the reason we think that is we think there's a huge amount of evidence. If you look at many companies in the US and in the West are actually run by refugees. So Comcast, Sundial, Westfield are all large companies based in US and Europe that are run by refugees. In general, refugees are extremely hard workers, and they tend to stick around. So in that second graph there, you can see that the turnover rates for refugees versus other workers is generally lower. That refugees tend to stay in jobs longer compared to non-refugees. And then thirdly, refugees tend to be creditworthy. If you lend money to refugees globally, the evidence suggests that refugees are capable of repaying, even though they're often in difficult circumstances. So this was a very large scale study done by Kiva that found that across 4 different countries where they worked, Lebanon, Palestine, Rwanda, and Jordan, the refugees were just as likely to repay loans as non-refugees. So on the one hand, we have, we believe that investors are out there seeking opportunities that refugees can provide. And on the other hand, you have refugee entrepreneurs and refugee companies that are looking for investment in order to grow. And so the Refugee Investment Network, we feel like our role is to sort of come in between those two and bring them together. We're a nonprofit organization, we're not a fund, but we exist to sort of catalyze the movement of private capital into refugee companies. We're a network. So the work of RIN focuses across 4 distinct pillars. The first one is, like I said, we work with investors and we help to mobilize investment capital. Some of that is just literally sitting down with investors and saying, educating them about the benefits by refugees. Somebody's on. So some of that is sitting down with investors and educating them, or providing better metrics that investors can use to make a decision to invest. Some of that is building the field and working with refugee companies themselves. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that when I hand over to Matai and we talk about the Resilient 100 program. The third pillar is about changing the narrative around refugees. We want to really showcase refugees as entrepreneurs, as sound investments, and as contributors to their communities, which is not always the case made by politicians or the media. And then the final pillar is around policy change. Often there are specific policies put in place by government. I'm getting some more feedback. Translated? In many cases.
Aya, can you please mute? We can hear you, Aya. Can you please mute?
All right. So the fourth pillar is advocating for specific policy changes that would make it easier for investors to invest in refugee companies. We have what's called a refugee lens, which allows both investors and companies to categorize the type of investments that they represent. So very quickly, R1 is a refugee-owned company. So that's a company where the majority of the company, either via the board or the CEO, is a refugee. R2 is a refugee-led company where you have senior management that are refugees. R3 is refugee supporting. So it's a company that either provides goods or services, or intentionally hires refugees, even if it's owned and managed by, say, host community members. Category R4 is around companies that support refugees but also support hosts. So at least 10% of the subcontracts and sourcing of that company's products are from refugee-owned businesses. And the final two are basically refugee financing models. So R5 is around lending facilities, those who provide debt to refugee companies, and R6 is more about equity. So that's kind of the lens through which we look at various companies, and the lens that we talk to investors about when we talk about investing in refugee-owned companies, refugee supporting. And then finally, and this is my last slide before I hand over to Matai, I want to talk about one specific program of ours, which is called the Resilient 100, and that's a project that is specifically focused at refugee-owned or refugee-led companies, and it provides a combination of business coaching, investment readiness support, and then networking to refugee-led businesses. It's a program that is currently open. It's filled on a rolling basis. Matai is the CEO of a refugee-owned company, and he joined us fairly recently. It's still open. We're looking for more applicants to fill this. So if you are involved in a refugee-owned led supporting company and you're interested in this, please get in touch with me after the talk. We have more space available. The purpose of this program is, like I said, supporting refugee-led businesses. It also helps us develop a pipeline when we go to investors and they say, yeah, I want to invest in a refugee business. It helps us to have a long pipeline of different types of companies that are ready to go. We know that these make a return on your investment. The program provides 13 months of business coaching. It's very sort of data-driven, uses digital tools and a lot of storytelling, and it's also there's a large networking component. We can put the businesses in touch with many of our investors or other business support services. And then the eligibility, like I mentioned, is you have to be either refugee-owned. That's 9%. And now to give you a better sense of the type of people and companies that we work with, I'm going to hand over to Matai. Matai is an entrepreneur and a CEO and someone that we've recently started working with. So I'm going to hand over to him and let him tell his story. Thanks very much. And Matai.
It works.
You want to stop sharing? There we go. Yeah, stop sharing. There we go. All right, over to you, Matai.
Yeah. Thank you, Danny. Hi, everyone. My name is Matai Mon. I'm a South Sudanese social entrepreneur, currently based in Nairobi. I'm a refugee. It's quite exciting, talking to all of you. I'm also a World Bank award-winning development blogger. So I write a lot about gender issue, international development, and all those. As you have heard from Danny, I am a urban refugee and I'm running a social enterprise. We call it Tidy Africa. So we came up with that venture in 2020 to try to understand the refugee space and how we can intervene as urban refugees. So my social enterprise works with refugees from South Sudan, refugee youth and women, and our intervention is in area of technology, social innovation, and entrepreneurship. And so we are using system thinking as our approach, to tackle poverty, the refugee poverty in urban setting. So in 2021, I met a colleague who introduced me to the brilliant work that Danny and colleagues are doing, the Refugee Investment Network, through their program called the Resilient 100, where they, provide skilling in area of business, for refugee-led organizations and refugee entrepreneurs. So what I did was we apply immediately, and fortunately enough, I was accepted. So I've been in the program now for the last 3 months, and I should say it's one of the best programs I've ever attended. Because let's be honest, as a refugee, you want to make a change, but you don't know how to do it. And you want to come up with some innovation. You want to run a business, but you do not have the skill sets, that you need to push forward the change that you want to do. So, and that's exactly what the Resilient 100 is doing, giving us skills, to understand our area of work, to create more impact, whether it is a policy change that you want to bring up. So, so in the last 3 months, that's what we've been learning about. So it's one of the most important programs I would recommend to my refugees, either you are based in the camps or in the urban setting, because, in the world of pandemics, or even before the pandemics, the only thing that you can sell is your skill. So this is a very, very important program. And I hope, you will have the time to join it and, learn the skills and the experiences that I've gained the last 3 months, so that you can turn around your business. And if you are not running anything now, it will give you an idea now to start one. So I think that's what I can contribute to that particular space. Dan?
Excellent. Okay. So thanks very much for giving us this platform. Thanks for listening so attentively. And that's all we have to say for right now. But both Matai and I are open for questions if anyone has any. And then just one final pitch. If you are interested in the Resilient 100 program, please do get in touch. You can do that either through the Techfugees staff who are in touch with me, or I can even put my email address in the chat box here. So it makes it easier for you to just get in touch with me directly. Great. Okay, so I think if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. And if not, then we will let you get back to your very important work here. Looks like maybe someone has their hands up on here in Kenya, I mean, here in Nairobi. But just go ahead. Okay, yeah, please just go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, here is the question. Go ahead. What's your question?
Yes, do you get me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks.
Yeah. So my question is basically on the way you plan to support tangibly in the means of capital way. Because if I may say, seeing the Resilient 100, I've seen that some days ago. I've been reading it, the article and everything. But my main question is supporting a refugee's business comes to the basic needs that he might need or she might need for even that business to be able to start. This comes with the documentations, where the license and everything within the host governments, where they have issues with the documentations. And then let's come to the capital. When it comes to a refugee, actually, it's just a status, but these guys, believe me, they can do mega things that we can't imagine. But the means are not there, the resources are not there. So are there ways maybe to connect them to opportunities where they can get capitals or kind of grant, how do I call it? Grants that we support them to start to boost or start their business.
People there, refugees who have not started their businesses, will receive some resources in order to start their business?
Or even to boost what they have already.
Okay. Is it, did you hear the question?
Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying is there a component of the program that provides some sort of capital investment or direct investment in the company for the entrepreneur?
One more single development. This is it.
Okay, great. So the program, the Resilient 100 program, does not have funding directly provided as part of the program. It's business development support. So it's a training program for refugee entrepreneurs or people who are in a leadership position with a refugee supporting company. But one component of the support that's provided is networking and connections to funds. So we have a network of funders all over, both in the US and here in the region in East Africa. So one part of that training is to think about, what's the best, given the profile of the company, who are the most likely investors, given the stage of business that you're in. If you're a startup, or if you're at growth stage or whatever, we can connect you to the relevant funders that would be interested in the type of work that you do. So that is the short answer is that we do not provide the funding directly, but we can put you in touch with people that can essentially. I don't know if you want to add to that at all.
Yeah, just to add on what Dan was saying. So, when you are a refugee, you first look at whether you have the necessary skill sets, first of all, before you even ask for funding. So when I joined the program, I also had the same question that my colleague is asking, whether, the Resilient 100 is able to fund my business directly. But then you first need to get a skill, and then you are connected to this brilliant network of people who have the money. But before they give you the money, they need to understand whether you can actually implement something. So what I would, urge every refugee is to consider this program. Once you apply and you get accepted, and then get the skills. I mean, it's a 1-year program, so it means they are very serious. So once you get the skill set, and then you will build a big network for your business, and then you end up getting capital. So that's what I would want to add.
Hope that answers your question.
Are there any questions from Dadab or Kakuma? Do you want to, you can either put your question in the chat or you can just ask out loud. We can see you sat in the room there, but we don't know if you've got any questions.
We have one from the dark room one.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, my question is, yes. So from what you discussed, I mean, like most of your focus is more of, like refugee-owned businesses or maybe like ideas. Is there any other way, like let's say I'm from the host community around you, and like let's say I developed a project, but by like by solving a problem in the refugee community. Is there any way, like I can take part in that program, or maybe like I can find investments or networking through your program? Maybe just elaborate on that and see. Maybe let me hear from you, and then I can ask you the other question.
Yep. So that is very much part of our refugee lens. Companies that are owned by or led by host community members, but that provide services to the refugees or those who hire refugees, so provide employment, are considered refugee lens investments. So you would qualify, presuming that you are offering services or hiring refugees as part of your organization, then you would qualify for the Resilient 100. Yeah. You said you have another part of your question or a follow-on question? I'm not sure if anyone's speaking. If so, I can't hear.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's a little bit faint, but I can hear you.
Now it's okay, you can hear me? Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, good.
I said, let's say, like from the initial stage of the, like of a company of startup, when you're starting, you start from, like by identifying a problem in the, like in the market. So do you normally take a problem, like a company or maybe a startup from the conception stage to like all the way whereby, like they can finally scale up and become a bigger company, or maybe like you just provide the seed funding and that is it? Is that like, how do you normally how do you normally, like get them into the program? Do you go grow with them like all the way? Or is it just, like in the initial stage and that is it?
So I guess there's two different ways to answer that question. One is for the Resilient 100 program, we're just looking at fairly early stage companies. You have to have been established for at least a year in order to be eligible for the Resilient 100. But if you've been around, if the company has been established for more than 1 year, then you're eligible. And then, as Matai was saying, the program is a 13-month training program, after which we help to connect you to investors, or potentially, depending on what we feel that the organization needs, we can connect people to incubators, accelerators, that sort of thing. So that's sort of the answer with regard to the Resilient 100 program. But the Resilient 100 is just one of our programs. In general, RIN looks to identify companies that have potential for growth and for profitability, because we're looking for a return for our investors. And we are fairly agnostic about what stage of growth they're at. So we're comfortable if we find a company at very early stages, we're comfortable, trying to connect them to investors. We don't usually work with entrepreneurs who haven't yet started a company. We're looking at startups, growth stage companies, and even larger stage companies that are looking to expand services into refugee areas. So we're in discussions with Safaricom, for example, because they're very interested in providing more services, financial services through M-Pesa to refugees in Kakuma. And they're by no means a startup. So that's where we're sort of, as an organization outside of the Resilient 100, we're interested in the full spectrum of refugee businesses.
Thank you, that's all. I think my question is answered.
Thank you, Dada. I think just looking at the time, I know that there's a couple of mentoring sessions starting now, so we don't want to keep you for too long, but we just wanted to thank Danny and the Refugee Investment Network for coming on today and telling us about the projects and being able to answer your questions. So thank you so much for that. We really appreciate your time. And we hope to all connect in the future when all of these amazing projects come to fruition. So thank you everybody for your time, and let's get back to work. Bye everybody.
Platform.
Bye.